All right, this is jpeg2RAW, show number 119. And tonight we may have a short show, but I wanted to come on and talk since we didn't do a show last week. And I know Tim's going to be traveling some in August, right, Tim? You're going to have
Correct.
vacation there. So
yeah, the second and third week I'll be in Disney. Imagine that.
Well, congratulations. That'll be a fun trip. So, I don't know what August is going to look like, but there's a lot going on. Things keep marching on, so we wanted to have a show tonight. And what I wanted to talk a little bit about is Lightroom 6. There's no official news on Lightroom 6. This is just Mike guessing and wondering when we're going to have a new Lightroom 6 coming out. I did the math, my own math, and it was about 15 to 18 months between Lightroom releases. And if that math holds up, we should have a Lightroom 6 beta somewhere between this month and September, is my guess. Nothing official. And then I found today, Tim.
Okay.
I'm going to try and find it for you. I had so much stuff. I found today this website where they're saying, and if you hear any music, let me know, because this site had music and I tried to turn it off. But this is, I don't even know what this website is, so bear with that. But what they're saying makes sense to me. They're saying September for the beta, and then March for the release, which March seems a little bit far off if you're doing a beta in September. I would think that you do beta in September and maybe a December or January release. But are you reading it for the first time now?
Yeah,
as I pulled it up?
I'm reading another one. Yeah, the 5.0 beta was April, and then the release was June 10th. So it was 2 months. Yeah, that would seem way
it seems a little
off.
bit far off. But I think whether this is right or whether it's sooner than that, or whether whatever it is, there's a couple of things to think about here. It's going to be within the next few months, I would guess, somewhere between now and September. Let's just go with that. That's my guess. So, first question is, and nobody is going to know because Adobe hasn't said, but it's going to be an opinion, is does it continue to be offered as a standalone product, or can you only get it through the Creative Cloud? And Creative Cloud also, in this article, and I've read it other places, so I think this is legitimate, that Adobe is now saying that the $9.99 a month for Photoshop and Lightroom is not an introductory price or limited time offer price anymore. It is a, they say permanent price, but nothing's permanent. But it's not an introductory price anymore, so that's going to continue. So the question is whether they're going to continue to offer it as a standalone. And I don't have any insight, so this is just me guessing. But my guess is, and I won't be willing to put money, I'll put $1 on it maybe, to one person, not to like 10,000 people. My guess is that Lightroom 6 is still a standalone. Lightroom 7, I don't know. Lightroom 6, I think you can get it in Adobe Creative Cloud, but it's going to be also offered as a standalone.
Yeah, I'm wondering which way they're going to go on that, and I'm going to lean the other way. I think it's going to be part of the Creative Cloud, and I think really
you're saying
the
only
one
part
area
of the Creative Cloud.
The one area we have not talked about though is what is the impact of Aperture leaving Apple going to have on this? Is that going to slow down Adobe from creating something? Is the new Photos app that's going to be created going to cause Adobe to do something? I think that's going to be the wild card to this. And maybe not for the next version of Lightroom 6.0, because that's probably been way under development. I think maybe the future to see where they're going to go.
Now, what you're saying is that you're taking the other side of the coin, which is fine. That Adobe 6 is only going to be offered through the Creative Cloud.
Yeah, I'll say 70% chance I'll go with that. Okay. I think there's a chance they go the other way, but I think that they're leaning toward that where they want the monthly income. All
right, so my bet's with you then. So
okay.
you take only Creative Cloud. I take, and this won't be fake money. and I take that it will still be sold as a standalone, but of course also as part of the Creative Cloud. But it'll still be sold as a standalone for number 6, Lightroom 6. You do bring up a good point about Aperture leaving, and I think that the majority of our listeners and our viewers are, or at least a disproportionate to the general population, or Mac users. And I like competition. I like the fact that we had Aperture out there. I never used it. The one thing I think Apple did there, and this is just the way Apple is they only let it be available for Apple users, for Mac users.
Correct.
So, where Lightroom was available for 95% of the computers plus the other 5%, assuming that the two of them are everything and you forget Linux and that kind of stuff. But in this example, just those two. They had it for everything. Lightroom was available for everything. Aperture was only available for that 5%. And if you're going to compete in that market against Adobe, you got to go more into it. And they're just not going. They just couldn't compete. They couldn't keep up with it. And it's not their core business. Apple, if it was their core business, they would have done fine with it. But it wasn't their core business.
No, and they stopped. I can't remember the last time they even had an update to it. Not that I've ever used it, and I've been in Lightroom I think since probably 2.0. I can't imagine switching at this point to anything. But I think what Adobe would need to do is they need to create some sort of path for the Aperture users to switch over to Lightroom and kind of steal them away from Apple at this point. Yeah, I would imagine they're going to do.
I would love to get it an Aperture person either on the show or go out to our forums. And I did a post. We're going to talk about this in just a second. I did a post in the forums where I'm talking about Lightroom 6 and saying, hey, what would you like to see in Lightroom 6? Where did I do that? And so as an Aperture user, I'd love to see from an Aperture user, what is it that you had in Aperture that's not in Lightroom 5.5 that you would like to see in Lightroom 6. Go out there to our forums, and I'll have a link in the show notes, and it's really easy. It's just jpeg2RAW.com/forums. Go out there and tell us what you would like to see. I'd like to hear from you about that. Adobe, though, has a history of they are aggressively trying to improve their product. Now, will they do it indefinitely without competition? Who knows? I don't know. But they really don't have real competition to Photoshop, and they just keep plugging along. And that makes it really hard for anybody to compete.
Right, I think I have to agree with that. I mean, there are alternatives out there, but nothing ever close. I mean, it's always called the gold standard. You don't hear anybody else really using anything other than Photoshop that's into serious editing. Now, I mean, I've used Photoshop, but if I use probably 5% of the capacity of it, I'm lucky.
Yeah. So, with that, I think they will continue to press hard on Lightroom. Where they end up taking it, I'm sure in their mind they've thought about Lightroom 8 and 9 already. But where they end up taking it, I don't know. I think 6 will probably see minor upgrades and not the big upgrades. We'll talk about what I would like to see here in just a minute. But I wonder with 7, they probably move over to a Creative Cloud only as they bring more and more of the mobile part of it into that, and it requires to have Creative Cloud. But I hope that they can have some kind of competition because. Aperture did give them a little bit. You got to remember, though, Aperture only sold to Mac users, which is 5% of the market or so. And even all Mac users didn't use Aperture. So they were such a small niche there that they really were not a major competitor to Lightroom as far as sales went.
Right.
So you hope that Lightroom you want all these guys to have some kind of competition. Canon, Nikon, Sony, Adobe, they all need competition to stay honest and aggressive in their what do you call it? Creating things.
We only benefit from it by the competition out there. I mean, it's only good for us.
Yeah, and so I know Nikki out in chat, she definitely knows what a beta is, and probably everybody out in chat right now, Dean, Stephen, Jackie, everybody knows what a beta is. But if you're listening and wonder what is a beta, what we talked about earlier, that's where Adobe has created, or anybody, the software company has created their product. They've internally tested it. They maybe even have a small team of external people who do alpha testing and that kind of stuff, and then they release it to a little bit wider team that are special people that they've used over the years that do small group beta testing. They give them a lot of feedback on this failed. They try almost everything, trying to get it to fail, and then give them feedback on that stuff. And then they do what they call a public beta, and that's where all of us get involved. They put it out there on their website. You can download it for free. It is a beta product maintenance is still in testing. It could have some things missing. It could have some things that fail, may not work 100%. But they're getting feedback through the system and find out where their bugs are before they release it to the public. Now, with that, generally their public beta has all the features baked into it. So when we see that public beta, it's not like they've got 20 features and they've already released 10 of them, and there's 10 more surprises coming in the final product. It's generally not that. What you see in the public beta is usually pretty close to the final product.
Right, and I think, like you said, really what they're trying to work out are any bugs in the system that may get caught up by having hundreds of thousands of people actually trying the product before it gets released.
Yeah, because what you don't know is, when you test it in your small group, you've got whatever computer configurations they have. When you put it in 100,000 people's hands, you're going to have a very wide span of different computer configurations, and that'll give you some ideas on where you have problems before you release it to the public. But unfortunately, it will be feature complete for the most part. So we can cross our fingers. So what are the new features that are being hinted about right now? And what would you say, Tim, and maybe I don't know how much you use Lightroom or chat, what would you say is the number one thing you would like to see improved in Lightroom?
Number one thing I'd like to see improved in Lightroom? I don't know. I think probably for me, speed. And I think that's probably the biggest issue I have is sometimes speed within the application.
Yep.
Am I right?
Well, there's nothing official here, so there's no right or wrong. But yes, that was what I would say too, is speed. And that's when we showed that page earlier. That is really what they're saying. The rumors are starting to come in as what Lightroom 6 is going to be. The main advance is going to be speed, somewhere between 75 and 100% faster. They don't go into faster at what function is that faster at, but 75 to 100% faster, and some UI tweaks. That is the main things in 6. Now, if that is all we get in 6, that tells us something too about where they're taking Lightroom. Is that they really are not advancing it as fast as we had hoped, and it probably really is going to go into just Creative Cloud in the future, and maybe in a lesser state. So out in chat, they're starting to say, a whole bunch of them are starting to say speeds. A couple of people said speed. Steven says layers. I'm going to guess that we don't see layers in Lightroom in 6. We don't see layers in Lightroom in 7. And I'm not going to go beyond that. Just because layers is
Photoshop, and that's I see that being more Photoshop based, and they don't want to go into that because then you're really pilfering too much from Photoshop, and then why would people go into Photoshop after that?
Yeah. So I don't think we'll see layers. I would like to see them, but I don't think we'll see them, Steven. Sorry. And all this is just my guess. I don't have any inside information. If I did, I probably wouldn't be able to talk about it. But don't see that. Now, if you go to the forums that I was showing earlier, I listed some of mine out. So some people have already said some of those. Speed is what I wanted to see. I don't know if y'all can read that, but speed. I was talking about it's time for Lightroom to start taking use of the GPU for some functions. Then you start taking use of the GPU. Better network support. You had mentioned that earlier, Tim, in the pre-show. I'd like to see network support where you can have multiple computers in a networked environment use the same catalog.
I would love that.
Yeah. My wife and I, we both have Lightroom on our computer. I would love for us to put Lightroom, the catalog, on a server, and both of us be able to access it at the same time would be really good. Add a loop-like feature that is in Bridge. We talked a little bit about Bridge. We had a process going in... not process, but a thread going in the Facebook group talking about Bridge versus Lightroom. I don't know if you got to see that. There was a long discussion about Bridge versus Lightroom. And in that, Bridge versus Lightroom. In that, one of the things was in Bridge, you had this loop feature where you can click on maybe the eye and it just pops up a little box that's a zoomed in thing of the eye or whatever part of the body you wanted to. And I think that would be great addition to Lightroom. I often, as I'm going through and doing my culling, I'm just doing XP, and if I need to zoom in to check focus, I hit the space bar, zoom in, 100%, hit the space bar, zoom back out. But that loop function could also be good. And this was mentioned. Nikki said something about this. Live over mic is not Facebook. Oh, she's not talking to me. Chat's not talking to me. This was mentioned by Nikki early on. The ability to edit in sRGB or change the color gamut you're editing in. Now I know what Lightroom's doing is saying we're working with the raw image. You're working with everything that it has. That's the whole thing about Lightroom is you're working with raw. However, if your final output is going to be sRGB, which is going to be the case for a lot of things, if you're sharing it on the web, if you're printing, in a lot of cases when you're printing, you're printing the sRGB, you want to know where's my out of gamut problems. I want to be editing in the color gamut that I'm going to be is my in use. You can soft proof and see that stuff in Lightroom. But you can't see it's the process there needs to be improved. So I did have that listed. I would like to see the radial filter in different shapes besides just a circle or a oval or whatever it is. I like to be able to have different shapes to the radial filter. And I'm just going down my list. Ability to add keyword shortcuts to presets. Keyboard. I was about to say, what was I talking about there? I would like to assign keyboard shortcuts to certain presets. And by the way, if you listen to this later or if you're out in chat and you go, Mike, you're an idiot. You already have that. You just need to do this. Email me at podcast@jpeg2RAW.com and let me know that it's already there so I can live my life a little easier.
Are you talking about keyboard shortcuts for keywords?
No, keyboard shortcuts for presets.
Because they are in there.
Yeah,
very limited, but it is in there.
I want to be able to assign a keyboard shortcut to certain presets. So I can, let's say hit Control Q and that applies this preset. Control W and it does this one, and so on. Okay, there's a surprising number of folks that are very much opposed to any kind of face detection. I'm reading chat.
Yeah, I know. I see Mike's posting, and I disagree. I would like to see facial recognition, and maybe have the access to turn it on and off. I mean, it's in my own, or at least make the suggestion for you, so it's easier. I mean, I know when I go through the pictures, sometimes it's a pain in the neck just putting all those keywords in there, especially when I have a soccer game and I'm going through all the kids' photos, and it's the same photo one after the other. I'm like, it would be so much easier if I could actually just have it recognize a face and they say, is this correct? Yes. Is this correct? Yes. And so forth.
So
but at the same time, I think about it like my son, whose name is Jack, but on the soccer team, the way I have the names for the soccer team is he's 5-Jack because his number is 5. So all the kids are assigned the number first and then their name after that. So what would it pick for him? It would pick both almost. It would kind of screw it up on that sense, but that would be the exception, not the rule.
Yeah, yeah. I think Aperture had facial recognition, if I'm not mistaken. I never used it, but I think it did. I know that what's funny is now that when I upload photos to Facebook. So let's say I go and do a swim meet and take photos of however many kids are there. It's surprising that when I upload those photos, how many kids are already tagged with their names. I was like, wow, I didn't tag any of them, but there's just image after image after image that's already tagged. Some of the kids I know, and I go, that's right. Every once in a while I got one wrong. Others I don't know the kid. I have no idea if I got it wrong or not. But it was just surprising that that's there. And I've often thought, it would be nice if it was a feature in Lightroom that, like you said, I would imagine you could turn it on or off. But if you're shooting a sporting event or something like that, where you've got a bunch of kids, and that could be useful, even if it would just gather them into, hey, this looks like all the same kid, all the same person,
right?
And
exactly.
And then I could tag them all with who that was. Yeah, so that would be very useful. So the last one I had is HSL adjustments in the adjustment brush and the radial filter. So you can actually be painting those things with your brush and your radial filter. Right now, I don't think you can do that. And I've missed a lot. There's been a lot of of chat
Chat.
going out there. I don't know what everybody is saying about stuff, but I know that there's been a lot of good tips out there on what other people wanted to see. What you said, Lightroom replaces Bridge in Photoshop. You know what's funny is Bridge has gotten a lot better.
Oh, I haven't used Bridge probably since I switched to Lightroom 2.0, and back then, Bridge was actually what I was using, but it didn't tag well. It had issues with it, and I wound up switching to Lightroom, and I never looked back. I mean,
Yeah, I think for me, I looked at Bridge just last week, and Bridge is a lot better than the old Bridge we remember. But if you're wanting to do editing like we're doing with Lightroom and that kind of stuff, for me at least, Bridge is just not there. It looks like somebody stripped away the majority of Lightroom's features and then gave you Bridge to be more of a file editor or something like that.
right.
And I just missed. I had something that was good. Dean had said something in chat that was a good item I wanted to bring up. I think it was Dean. Yeah, multi-renaming of importing files. I'm guessing that as you're importing the files, you want to be able to name them, like you can name all of them, whatever the shoot is. You're wanting to do it for multiple images at the same time, if I'm getting that right. And now they're talking about SSD versus hard drive. Yeah, SSD is just amazing. Put your catalog on and your images and Lightroom on too, if you can. The prices come way down. It will help your speed quite a bit. So, what did I miss as far as what we'd like to see in Lightroom?
I gotta scroll way back.
No, not as far as that. But did I say anything? Did I not say something that everybody would like to see?
I think there was a kind of back and forth on the one with the network accessibility for people. Maybe people don't have it at home the way we do. I know I have a server that I store. Actually, I don't store my pictures on there anymore. Now it just gets backed up to them because I realized that was my bottleneck in opening pictures in Lightroom. It would have to retrieve the picture from the server. Now I actually keep them on the SSD drive on my local computer. But there's a lot of times where if I go away on vacation or something, I have a portable laptop with me. Just merging the two catalogs is sometimes painful. Well, and I do it, but it's painful.
So here's my thought on that. And again, I'm probably wrong in this thinking, so everybody can correct me afterwards by email. But if you have like a central catalog, let's say that's your catalog, that's or your files or whatever, on your laptop or your remote computers, you have the Smart Preview, something like whatever it is. It doesn't even have to be the full thing, but Smart Preview, at least where you can zoom in and do that kind of stuff. You do your local adjustments, and only the local adjustments need to sync up back to the server and to the catalog. And those XML files are usually pretty small. So if Adobe did this right, they could make it pretty fast. You still have to have local, some kind of Smart Preview or something on the local computers. But I think you could make the syncing and all that, much faster than what we'd have right now. So I don't know why you need to load the entire catalog, which can get pretty big, every time you pull up Lightroom. And they're talking a little bit about SSDs out there. If you don't have an SSD, look at getting one for Lightroom, for the catalog, or for something, whatever you can, for the OS drive. And in my case, I have 3 of them in the computer: one for the OS, one for all the Adobe products, and some other products, and then another one for the Lightroom catalog and everything. And it does make a big difference in boot up times and some other things. And the prices have come way down in that. There was something I was going to say that I forgot that they're talking about out there. Oh, Steven said the ability to integrate, to use the graphics card, and like you can in Photoshop. You don't, dedicate the entire graphics card to Photoshop, and it's only for specific features. I mean, if you dedicated the whole thing, you wouldn't be able to see anything on screen because the graphics card is actually rendering everything you see on screen. And if it was dedicated to Photoshop, then you wouldn't be able to render anything unless you had a second graphics card.
Well, does Lightroom even utilize a graphics card?
No, and this is something that you and I had a little discussion about earlier. You thought it did not. I thought it did, and you were right. It does not.
Right, that's what I thought. I mean, I even had posted that on This Week in Computer Hardware. Asked them that question when I built my last computer probably 2 years ago, and they said, you know what, you don't even need it. And I was like, why wait? I don't do computer gaming. I had no need for a graphics card at the time. Still don't, I don't think.
You're talking about you're just using the one that's built in.
One that's built into my motherboard.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good enough. I mean, the newer motherboards are pretty good. I'm not even sure what my motherboard is anymore, but it's more than capable for what I use.
Yeah. Yeah, and so talking about SSDs again, I think I don't think I put the actual photos on an SSD. That'd get too expensive.
Really, no, I do.
Oh,
All
I have
my
I have 2 terabytes of photos.
No, I don't have that much. But then again, I don't go out there and take 3,000 at a swim meet every week.
Yeah, well, swimming's over for me, so I don't have to do that anymore. But
Oh no, scratch it. My photos. You're right. I have them on a spinning drive. I have them on a 1 terabyte drive. I just looked it up.
yeah, I put them there.
I was wrong.
But going back to the graphics card, there are some things like when you're using the healing brush, when you're using the some of the other items, the what do you call it, the radial filter, and some of those things that are a little more graphic intensive, a little more CPU intensive. That would be nice if you could offload some of that stuff to the GPU.
I agree.
Do something there. And Nikki mentioned something earlier. I didn't have this on my list, and I missed it. But the whole way we do presets and your brushes and all those things, there needs to be a little bit better organization. With that, it's if you end up with a lot of presets, it can get a little unwieldy to manage all those things. So I think it needs to be a better mechanism for handling those. What do you think, Tim?
I'm sorry, I was reading something else.
Speaking of those presets and everything, did you see this, Tim? I put out into the forums. Now we've had a download section, just haven't had anything in it. But now if you go to the download section and you go to Actions and Presets, Lightroom Presets, I now have 2 presets that you can download. They're free. They're always going to be free. Go ahead.
Yeah, I saw you had posted that last week. I didn't actually download any of the presets yet.
So
Do you know if anybody's actually downloaded it?
I can tell you that it has been downloaded. Yes. So these are free. You just go out there and you can download them, and you can even see like the here's the original image, and then there's what the effect does. So you get a little screenshot of what the effect is doing. It doesn't change anything in her, just changing the water. And this is
the water made it nice color blue.
Yeah, this is something I created because as I'm shooting, and the water always looked this pale color, this aqua color. That's actually in this case, this water, the original water, is not that bad. It's usually even worse than this. But I wanted to see a little bit better looking water. And so this is the heavy version. I also have one here that is the light version of that same edit. It's here's the original, and here's the edit. So a little bit less effect on the water.
I think I like the heavy one better.
Everybody voted for the heavy one, yes. Yeah. But you can go out there, you can download either one of these. Nice little easy download button. You can see the 2 of them there. And if you've joined our forums, you can actually upload your own. Just don't upload ones you bought. These are ones you made personally that you're willing to share. Go there, and I'll add in some more groups here too. We have one for brush presets, and as I come up with new stuff, I'll add them in here. Always free for you to download them.
And obviously, I think you just got to mention only put stuff you create, not something you've copied from somewhere else or bought from somewhere else.
Absolutely. And so I now have the link at the bottom where it's jpeg2RAW.com/forums. Go out there and add some of the things you want to share, and we'd love to hear about what your thoughts are on Lightroom 6, what you'd like to see in Lightroom 6, and the things are still coming in. Mike Wren says, I'd like better control over date timestamp for scanned photos, like non-DSLR photos.
And I think about that. All my old pictures from when I had just a regular SLR, I probably had the date stamp on all of them.
Yeah. Stephen says the ability for a watermark brush would be nice. I have to think about that one. or a dual export ability. One photo with one watermark. Oh, there you go. Okay, this is a thought. I want to output 2 photos, one with a watermark, one without. I'd probably want them to be into 2 separate subfolders.
I'd want them in separate folders, otherwise
Yeah.
it would get confusing.
It would get real confusing. Yeah, probably in separate things. Yep, that would be nice. Dual export. And as I'm sure there's a lot more Lightroom experts out there than me. You can set up Lightroom presets for exporting. That kind of stuff. There's a lot of features in Lightroom that probably people don't take a lot of use of. That whole previous button. I don't know. Do you use that button?
I used to use it. I haven't used it now in a while.
Yeah, I use that quite a bit. But those are the main things. The main thing for me I'd like to see is speed improvement. What happens to me over time as I'm editing and going from one shot to the next shot is it seems like little bit by little bit it gets a little bit slower.
Yes.
And then all I need to do is close out Lightroom, come back in, and my speed's back. And then it will happen again. So if I'm going through hundreds of photos, I might have to close out and come back in several times.
I don't think I've noticed it that bad, though. That I wouldn't say. I mean, it's not as quick as I would like it, but I don't know, is that because my catalog is getting too big at the same time? And I always wonder, I mean, I don't know how many pictures I have in my catalog. I don't think I've hit the 100,000 mark on it, but I have quite a bit, and I'm expecting sooner or later it's just going to slow down from too much in there. But I don't want to separate my catalogs. I want to be able to search for pictures going back whenever I want versus having it in a separate catalog and saying, all right, now I got to go to this one.
Okay. Yeah, and that's probably something I've done wrong is I have everything in one catalog.
Right.
So I got over 200,000 images in one catalog. I have started creating new catalogs for different things, but my main one is one. I like to be able to go in and search in one catalog. Right,
exactly. That's why I like the one catalog.
Yeah.
And they say, I mean, I think, was it Scott Green who'd mentioned something about 500,000 and there's no issue? I think he had mentioned it once, and I don't think there is an issue with it, but I wonder if there is at the same time.
Okay. Yep. And, we had, what was his name? The guy who did the time-lapse stuff. I can't remember his name either. A long time ago. He did the time-lapse stuff, and they had hundreds of thousands.
Right. That maybe it was him that mentioned it.
Yeah. And he's going to kill me now what his name is. Ben something.
That's good. Now I'm going to have to look it up.
Consalis or something like that. Anyway, that's a good show. You should go back and watch that if you haven't watched that already. The guy who does the time-lapse and stargazing photos, some amazing stargazing photos that were on, I think it was on the cover of National Geographic at one point. Consalis or something. Anyway, that's my Lightroom wish list for Lightroom 6. I think as soon as Lightroom 6 comes out, I will download it. We'll probably do another show where we go over some of the new features. And please go out into our forums and add your thoughts into the post that I have there on what you'd like to see in Lightroom 6. And then when Lightroom 6 comes out, let's go back and check off what actually happened and what didn't happen. Did you find Ben?
Yep, but you had it right, Ben Gonzalez. Show 40. Back at show 40, so it's a long time ago.
Yeah. And don't forget to use, let's see if I can get us set up here. Don't forget to use our Amazon link. I think so far this month we're up to $1.40. If you're wondering why did Mike stop the $25 gift certificate to the Facebook the photo challenge, it's because we're at $1.40, and Mike's not going to fund $25 every month when what we're doing is $1.40. But what we do with that is we take all the funds and then we give it to people either through a photo challenge, through a photo contest, through a giveaway or something like that. We don't keep any of the funds. We give it back. So if you are going to buy anything from Amazon, before you go there, you got to do this before you go there. Instead of typing in Amazon.com, either come to our page and click on the link, or type in www.jpeg2RAW.com/Amazon. Real easy. You should even bookmark that when you get there, so then you don't have to remember it each time. You have it as your bookmark.
That's what I do. I have it right at the top of my Chrome in the title bar, so I can just click right on it when I want to get into it.
Very good. I also heard from our TiVo listener, TiVo Yeah, there's more than one. He has his buddies come over and they watch the show. Heard from him, and he said, "Hey, Mike, I'd love to come to and watch a live show. When is the live show?" And really, I thought about that. If you are not part of the Facebook group or the Facebook page or Twitter, if you're not in one of our social spots, then you probably have no idea when is the show.
Oh, this is true. We
yeah,
don't mention it normally when we're starting.
Yeah, I do post it. The best way is to watch us either on Twitter or on Facebook. We post it there, or you can just come to jpeg2RAW.com/live, and I will generally have the next live show and then a date there in the title telling you when the next live show is. So if you went there now, you would see July 8th, 2014. And then sometime between now and next week, I'll change that to be 15. But it's generally Tuesday nights, 8:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you're watching us on TiVo, or if you're listening to us somewhere else and want to come to a live show one night, that is where we're going to be. If you want to know who's coming up, who's going to be the guest, go to jpeg2RAW.com, then calendar. There's a link there that says calendar, and I post there who's going to be coming up on the show in the future. And Tim, that's all I have. So we're going to have a short show tonight. We will see. Do you have anything before I close?
No, I think that we covered it all. I'm actually not. Sadly, now I'm looking forward to Lightroom 6.
So yeah, hopefully, whenever somebody searches for Lightroom 6, all they find is jpeg2RAW, because we're about the only people talking about it. But we know it's got to be right around the corner.
I agree,
and I can't wait for it to come out, get testing of it, and we'll come back and do another show on what Lightroom 6 actually is, rather than this us guessing and wishing. But until next show, keep it raw. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.